Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 312 for August 15th, 2023. I'm your host, Towmaster99. Welcome. And with me are my two gentlemen here. Game Logic, how you doing?
All right, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And of course, Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing okay. I'm trying to figure out how small the new PlayStation is and if it fits inside the old PlayStation, but it certainly doesn't seem as elegant as the PS4 Slim or that tiny little like folder that was the PlayStation 2 Slim. So,
well, when you start ugly, you can only go to modified ugly in one step. It's going to take another step before we get to elegant, maybe 2 or 3.
Everybody that has the giant box or the giant art sculpture of the PlayStation 5
router
is going to be very interested to see how the footprint of this one actually looks like.
Yes. There hasn't been any revisions for Xbox yet, has there? I don't think. Other than, I guess, the S, which really was just a color change in the storage edition.
We've got the new S coming later this year.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into our main GX stories. Got a nice smorgasbord of games here. We got some open world, some sports. DB, let's start out with you. You got your the first sports game of today, Wild Card Football.
This is true, yes. So as Game Logic told me, I am now the sports designee. So yes, so Wild Card Football is made by Saber Interactive. This is the same group that made NBA Playgrounds 1 and 2. NBA Playgrounds 2 was published by 2K back in 2018. And then in, 2020, they also did a WWE like arcade wrestler, WWE Battlegrounds, and now they've come out with Wild Card Football. So this is very much like a Blitz-like game. It actually plays a lot like Blitz in terms of the gameplay, the menu layout, your play call. You don't get the kind of like thump, thump, thump kind of soundtrack as you go through and select your different plays as you did in Blitz, but it has that same type of kind of hyper speed that Blitz does. It has the NFLPA license, so it has all the NFL players, but does not have their teams. So it has all NFL teams, close color scheme approximations, but they are all, there's no logos, and all the team names are named for their team quarterback. So you can play any team you want, and it has everybody's, all your current NFL players are there on their appropriate team. And then there is also what's it called? A dream squad mode, which is basically your team building card aspect of, like, you're pulling packs and populating your team with players from those packs. If you pre-ordered, you got Dan Marino and Barry Sanders and Jerry Rice and Walter Payton. All sound really great, but on your dream squad, they are like 64, 65. So everybody kind of starts off pretty low, and as you play with them, they can level up, which increases them. As you play, you earn XP, which levels them up. It also, your XP also levels you up as a player, and every player level you then get additional a loot crate. Loot crates cannot be purchased. They are only through doing in-game challenges and playing the game.
So when you say they're 64 or 65, or you say that's their overall player score, or you say that's their age? Because I think they're pretty close on both counts.
No, it is their overall player score. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, right? Like, suddenly we are the progressive, or the Tostitos commercial of Barry Sanders and Randy Moss wanting to play football still. Yeah, no, it's not that, right? It is their overall score. So their overall scores go up, and in the Dream Squad, that's what you play when you play online. If you're going to play online with people, there's also an offline kind of tour mode, which takes you through both games and also kind of mini challenges of scoring X number of points and things like that. All this does not hit yet on the wild card aspect of this. So the other piece here is that as you unlock boxes and as you play, before each play, you can choose. You have action points. You have a total of 10 that you can bank over the course of time. Different cards will be different action points, cost different action points. So increasing your quarterback speed by 50% will cost 1 action point. Increasing your running back speed will cost 3 action points. Decreasing the defense overall speed will cost 4 action points, depending on kind of the card you have. And then you also have cards that can make the next wild card play cost more for the other team, or kind of block them from using things. It can also be, that's where you can also get the kind of ones that you've seen in kind of the trailers, in terms of becoming a giant and New Super Mario Brothers your way to the first down line. You can push the other team back 5 yards, or bring the first down line closer 5 yards, get your, redo a down, basically get an extra down. So those are all available if you're playing like the season mode or the exhibition, where you're playing with the NFL players. If you're playing the team mode, you have to unlock those as you go. So when I played online, I played local co-op or local versus against my son, and we had all the different cards unlocked, so we could try different things, play out with different things, and that allowed us to, he stopped me from getting a field goal because he had a card that basically put up a force field around the field goal. You can also turn all that off and just play football. So there is this layer of, it's this push pull. I think I've played it since launch. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun, right? I love Blitz. Blitz was fun. It was kind of over the top arcadey football. Your run game isn't super strong. If a perfect, a good timed stiff arm can get you a couple more extra downs. On defense, you have almost like a quick time event on the line. If you're playing a lineman, that as you lock up in the line, you push whatever corresponding button pops up on the screen. And if you hit that, you kind of break through, you swim tackle, you do a swim move, or you get through your offensive lineman, get you to the quarterback closer. There's trick plays like there were in Blitz, in terms of like pitching it and then throwing it. Defense seems to have, it's pretty good. I found some weaknesses against the computer. those get a, kind of in terms of kind of you can hit certain plays or I think one of the things that is not as it could be more strategic, right? Like the layer here is the push pull here is that the blitz aspect of the speed of the game keeps you moving, but then before every snap, it slows you back in a strategic way because you decide if you're going to play a card or not. Like if you turn off the cards, the pace of the game keeps moving pretty quickly. If you turn on the cards, there is this layer of strategy of, okay, so it's a long third down. I'm going to guess you're passing. So I'm going to play decrease your accuracy by 50%. It's second and short and you're going to try maybe for a run. I'm going to increase my strength by 50% so I can kind of bowl over you on the line and not get stuffed by a stiff arm. So there's actually some strategy there in some of those. Some of the over the top ones are, like tar pits that slow you down or speed bursts, on different spots. So there's some goofiness to it all, but there is that kind of all the cards that you play come after you choose the play, where in some ways, like if the cards came before the play, like if I was going to pick increased speed, then maybe I'd pick a running play, but I have to pick a play first and then I can choose my wild card. So sometimes those wild cards don't match up with the play you actually called, which I guess is part of kind of the gamble aspect of it. It is, for as quick paced as the on the field play is, if you make a big play, you get a little, celebration, whether that's a high five or a big tackle or jumping up and down and celebrating, but you can't skip it. Hopefully that's something that could be patched in, because what it does is it kind of slows down the pace of the game. But actually, overall, it's a lot of fun. Like if you've enjoyed Blitz over the year, NFL Street, this is a game at $40 that plays pretty well for a arcade football game, right? We don't really have a whole lot of options about this. There's not really any other equivalent out there. I think that, I've enjoyed what this developer has done. NBA Playgrounds was pretty fun. I found the timing of the shot not real tight, and so I never really invested a lot of time there. The wrestling one was the WWE one was pretty fun, kind of arcadey with a little bit of strategy in there as well. And this feels like the most polished of the sports games or sports entertainment games, depending on how you want to classify professional wrestling, right? Like it feels the most polished of this, but it's still in the menus feels very much like the other two games that Saber has made, the other three games that Saber has made. These are kind of static menus. There are little pages. It looks like an old Xbox home menu, right? Like you've got tiles and you move between them to choose what you're going to do. So it's not really flashy, but it's well designed in terms of gameplay. So it hasn't really seemed like it's gotten a lot of press or a lot of hype. It was one that was kind of on my radar because I knew of the developer. So when it was announced, I kept track of it. And I'm glad I picked it up. I picked it up right out. I mean, I'm also glad that I only paid for the $40 version and not the $60 version with the season pass, which has not been announced of what it actually contains. And, it's a lot of cosmetics, or 10 extra packs is what would come with the $60 version, but the packs are still random. So it's not like it guarantees you a 70, so as I've been playing and moving through things, I've got some 70s. I don't really have a, huge team. My overall is still like in the low 60s, but it's one of those where you can play a game or two and put it down and then move on to something else. Like you're not going to sit and kind of marathon through it, but for a pick up and play game, a couch co-op, or even just kind of a quick football game that doesn't have the level of technical dedication that you would need for a Madden, there's a lot here.
So do you get a chance to play a card each play, or is it just like, or you have just like one chance, like when you're on defense or offense, depending on.
So every down you get a chance to play cards.
Okay,
It
so
depends on how many action points you have, right? Like if I have 5 overall action points and my last card used 5 overall action points, then you only regenerate 1 or 2 action points per down. So if the cards that come up are, you can equip them so that you have, you're kind of deck building to some degree there. Like there's been times when I've used a big card, and when I've come to the next play, I have cards that show, but they're all grayed out because I don't have enough action points to actually use them. So you do get that option as you go through, but then there's also the strategy aspect of how frequently you're going to do it, or if you're going to bank those points this down and not use anything because you've got a good card there that you want to play the next down type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Game Logic, any questions or comments on that one?
Yeah, so the card system sounds a little bit like kind of Marvel's Midnight Suns to a certain extent. I just want to go back to what you were saying about the tempo and the pacing. So when you pick a play and the CPU picks a play, or if you play multiplayer, the other person picks a play, are you saying that it then pauses and gives each player time to play a card?
So you pick a play, you have a play clock, right, to pick a play. And then once you pick the play, it switches screens to another 10 seconds where you can play a card. And then if you don't play anything, it goes on. Or if you play something, then it goes to snapping the ball, right? Like, so there is this, that, it kind of slows that pace down of where in Blitz, sometimes it feels like you're just kind of moving back and forth really quickly. You can choose that play, get right back to the line, keep going. But here, if you shut those off, it keeps moving pretty quickly. But if you turn those on, it does kind of slow that pace down.
Yeah, the whole impact of Blitz and NFL Street was that essentially you were kind of running Eli Manning's no-huddle offense, right, all the time. Like the play clock was incredibly short. You always called the play from the huddle, so it wasn't like you really got like kind of the play calling screen like you did in Madden. You cycled through all your routes and stuff that people were doing like at the line of scrimmage. So I mean, I guess in this case, what it does is it's essentially giving you like 2 phases of play clock, essentially. Which I can see how that.
And each play clock is not the full play clock of like an NFL game, right? The choosing a play is 10 seconds. And you have like 3 suggested plays, you have run plays, pass plays, and special teams. And so you can kind of skip through, and if you know what you're kind of running, or you know who your players are and the go-to options, kind of move that around. So the whole play clock itself is probably 20, 25 seconds. And the default quarters are 2 minutes. So it is a faster paced game, but it is not quite that same pace of running a no huddle offense.
So going back to what you're saying earlier about, obviously you have the players, but not actual team logos. So are the teams there like themselves? Like do you have Green Bay Packers, or is it just Green Bay, or is it not even like the cities there either?
It is. I think there's maybe 8, 12 different stadiums or fields that you play in. Like you can play in Texas, and it's out in like a cattle ranch field. You can play in the Northwest, and it's a big sequoia forest. You can play in downtown Chicago. So it does have this kind of like cartoony aspect to them, and all the character designs are very cartoony. If you've looked at any of the other Saber, like NBA Playgrounds or Battlegrounds from WWE, they'll have this kind of
sort of like Super Mega Baseball.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. Like they feel
big
like
hands,
action
big
figures.
heads stuff.
Yeah. Right. They're kind of action figure-y, big hands, big heads. But it's not. The teams have no city or team name affiliated with them. They only have the player. Right.
Okay.
Like it kind of makes me think of, oh my gosh, what was this? Like John Elway's football back on the NES. Like it didn't have, like there's been times over the years where the NFLPA license has been used differently than the NFL license, right? Like the All-Star football from 2K.
Tecmo Bowl.
Tech Mobile, right? Like,
Yeah.
you didn't have, but then that even had cities, right? Like here you don't have, you just have names of the quarterback. Like they do not even say where those cities are. So, and at first, like the first go through, I spent a good 2 minutes kind of looking through every team, like, oh, okay, wait, who's that? Oh yeah, this is who that team is, right? Like the colors are kind of there, but they're not close enough to trigger any lawsuits. So Justin Fields in Chicago has some type of blue and orange, but not necessarily the Chicago Bears blue and orange. So, and they're also kind of stylized pads. Like different teams have different pads. You unlock different pads that you can use. It is very much a kind of stylistic, arcadey sports game.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out because I always love Blitz and played that like a bunch. So
From what I've been reading online and seeing videos of, I would encourage you to check it out on current generation systems and not the Switch, just in terms of load times and kind of, slow down things like that. Like the frame rate, I'm playing on PlayStation 5, plays super smooth. Loading speeds are fast. But from what I've seen on the Switch and reviews from it, it seems to slow down quite a bit.
it's slow. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Game Logic. You have picked up the most recent Assassin's Creed, Mirage. How is that going for you?
Yeah, so I talked about this one a little bit last week, so it's going into like my second week of runtime with it. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the news and the player numbers and stuff tonight, and pretty much my sentiments kind of echo that, right? It's comfort food, right? It's a great follow on, where I've been playing, Miles Morales recently. It's a great kind of tee up for Spider-Man 2 coming out this weekend. It is, like I talked about last week, it has all of the hooks of past, Assassin's Creed. It's just at a smaller scale. And at the end of the day, for me, the meta that I most like about the game, it's all about outpost takedowns, So as you go up to each of these missions, the puzzle aspect of, what is the outpost? Where are the enemies positioned? What skills are you going to use? How are you going to use Enkidu, the hawk? In the most recent mission that I played through this week, called the Concubine, I was going in to take out an outpost where, somebody who was a member of a spy network had been captured, and I was trying to use Enkidu to scout the compound, but the problem was that there was a marksman, and so this marksman basically takes sniper shots right at your hawk, eagle, whatever, so you can't use them to recon the compound. So I had to go all the way around to the backside of the compound. As I mentioned last week, same thing. I did my favorite Assassin's Creed takedown, which is, mantling on like a sill, like just below them out of their sight, and then reaching up and grabbing them, and pulling them over. In this case, the kill animation was a little different. He actually reached up and stabbed him in the stomach, and then grabbed him and pulled him over. And then I did a leap of faith down into the courtyard because there was like a pile of like rosebuds there for you to dive into. Took out, one guard who was standing right in front of the thing. And then when the other guard came to investigate, took that person out. And then it was super interesting because then where I went up to overlook where the person was holding the captive, there were like two guards between, I was on like the third level. On the second level below me, there were two guards walking past in a pattern where it was like, I don't know how in the world I'm going to take these two guards out. And then it was the captain all the way down in the courtyard with the prisoner. And so DBQ, you asked last week, were there, could you invest in gear and things like that? And you can go to a blacksmith and get your weapons upgraded, change their appearance, do other things. And so I had gone, and so you have throwing knives, and when you unlock tier 1, then you can invest in range damage, or I think one other aspect of the knife I can't remember. So I had happened to have invested in range, And so I was able to throw my knife for, a good deal of additional distance, which is, the tactical situation I was in. And so I took throwing knives and threw them past the two guards that were below me down to the captain in the courtyard because I had that kind of range. It took two knives to drop him. And so I dropped him, but then, the people in between, and like they all flipped out, but they had no idea like where the kill was coming from. So, then I had no enemies behind me, and I was just able to exit the compound, and then make a water escape, which is my preferred method. When water is available to get away. So, it's continuing to do what Assassin's Creed does, and I'm having a great time with it.
Nice. All right. And this was on PS5, right? You got this.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Okay. All right. DB, any comments or questions on that one? No? All right.
No, yeah, it's glad it sounds like you're still enjoying it, enjoying the kind of pace of it. So, which is good.
Yep. All right. Up next, I got my first game here, and it is a slightly older game, Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Slightly old? I mean, I think we're at the
Slightly old.
10-year mark at least. with
It's
this
slightly
game.
old. So I actually, I tried to play this, I think a year or two ago, I think it was. And for some reason I couldn't, it wasn't working on the machine I had. Well, to be honest with you, a long time ago, not a gangster far away. I actually tried to play it on an even older machine, and that just wouldn't, like, I couldn't handle it. I was actually able to get in the game, but it was like so slow and like, laggy. That was just like, I can't do it anymore. But when I tried to do it a few years ago, I can't remember what the deal was, but like I couldn't get it to start. Like I would just get frozen on the screen. So fast forward a few years, and my friend he actually started playing it, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to play?" I was like, "Oh yeah, like definitely." Like those are the kind of games like DC Universe and stuff like that. Like I always like to play with other people. So I jumped. I was finally able to jump on with him. Was once again I had the problem. It was just like a resolution problem this time. And I was at the game, and so we played for I think a couple hours. I think it was like Friday or Saturday night, or Friday night, I should say. And just your normal, MMO, but obviously just like a Star Wars rep. I shouldn't say normal, obviously
So
this is
what
Star Wars.
have you started a class? What class did you do? I mean, I played this on and off the first couple of years that it came out. Played a couple. I think I was a Sith. I was a rogue. So what class did you start as? Did you start together, or how did this? Because back a decade ago, when you would play this game, you had to go through kind of the intro story mission before you could group up with somebody. So has that changed?
Yeah, you still have to do like the tutorial part, and I had already done that actually, like during the day because I knew we're gonna play together. So I'd got that part at least, and I was on my the very first mission. Yeah, he was able to jump in, and there's you have to kind of go into the settings and allow. He had to go into his settings and allow himself to be able to jump into my game. And I can't remember what the actual wording was for the setting in there, but it allowed him to get into my game, so he can help me out, which is kind of nice. Sometimes I kind of don't like that because it's like he's obviously super overpowered because he's been playing for a little bit now. I think he'd been playing throughout like last few weeks or so, but he was actually pretty good. He actually had a companion too. He actually had to turn her off or turn him off. I can't remember if it was a man or a woman. Because she would just like as soon as I hit anything, she would just like jump on it and like destroy everything. So, which is fine. I mean, I still get experience points, but it's like I kind of want to do stuff on my own. So he turned that off for now. At that point, and we were just kind of going through my first few missions and stuff. So very early on so far, but I definitely want to continue doing this one just because Star Wars. I'm big Star Wars fan. So I did pick. I'm going to try to go through the light path of a Jedi because I think you can do Jedi, like a bounty hunter. I can't remember what the other one was. There's like a third class that you can choose from. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember what the other class was, but so I'm just doing Jedi right now.
Wasn't there like an Imperial officer at one point in time? I'd have to go back and
Maybe,
look.
yeah. I
But
can't remember what the third one was, but yeah, just doing the Jedi. I actually don't even have my lightsaber yet. I'm just using like the stick thing, but it kind of lights up like a lightsaber even when I'm in battle right now. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, I think I'm getting close. From what he said, I'm getting close to the mission where I pick or build or whatever I have to do to get my own lightsaber. So I'm gonna try to do that. And he did say like as you progress. And maybe I don't know if you've ever finished like the main campaign story because I think he actually already went through it. and finished it. You can do the lighter dark side, but he was telling me like just do like don't try to like go back and forth, because if you have like I guess a majority of or not majority but a good amount of like dark I don't even know what it is, points or dark
Yeah, it
missions
plays
that you
out kind
do.
of like the BioWare Mass Effect pieces where you're better off just kind of going down one track rather than kind of straddling the line of dark versus light.
Yeah, so he was just saying just do all light if you want to do light, because that's what I want to do. That's what I usually do. So yeah, I think there was like one thing where it gave me like a dark point because I did something, like I said something. It was just a conversation, so I was like, I didn't even do anything. Like I was just kind of being snarky, and like that's a dark side thing. I'm like, all right, that's fine. But yeah, it's I'm gonna try to stick to the light, and it's pretty good. There are vehicles in there for right now. I don't know if you can control them like yourself, because right now it's basically just like a taxi service where it takes me, like I'm just a passenger in it, and it takes me between the different missions I have to go to. So the different
So you started this as the free version of the game, right?
yes.
So this is almost a 12-year-old game at this point. Does it jump you up into any of the modern story stuff? Like they are well past the original starter stuff. Did it feel any different from when you started it way back when?
I can't really remember because I didn't really get too far, since I couldn't really play it because it was because of my computer at the time. So I don't really remember like at that point like what the story beats were. I should ask him because he might have tried playing it earlier too, back in the day, because he's a big MMO guy. He plays a lot of MMOs, so I'll have to ask him about that and to see if there's any kind of comparison. But yeah, for right now, I don't know, unfortunately. So
Well, 12 years later, this is probably the most we've talked about this game. So
yeah. Yeah, and that 12-year-old game, it looks fine. Like it's not, obviously I got a way better computer now. I can play most modern games, in high settings, but it looks fine. Like it's nothing like terrible or anything. So I'm sure and I thought, didn't that company, I don't know if did they split from BioWare or they moved the development to a different company. I can't remember. There was something within the last year or two, I think.
I
Where
think
that
they
happened.
moved it out of BioWare into kind of a spun-off company. BioWare Austin, which was the head of this, also is the company that was pulled kind of off of this at one point back in 2020, 2019 to try to save or revamp Anthem, which
Okay. Yeah.
we've never seen anything since then. So yeah, this was all part of the kind of struggle of this is probably the last strong BioWare game in terms of where they went afterward.
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody who enjoyed, Inquisition and Andromeda, but kind of critically, this was a significant game back at the time when. But it's also, is it still in that kind of WoW cooldown aspect? Because it hasn't converted to any type of like action combat. It's still very much the kind of control bar type of thing, right?
Yeah, it's still the control bar. Yeah, and that's I
Okay.
kind of had to get used to that. Yeah, and obviously I've played other MMOs before, like I said, DC Universe, and I tried WoW back in the day, and I didn't like it. But um, I had to have my friend help me with some certain things because like I don't understand why. Like obviously there's cooldown and everything, and he kept telling me like, no, you should have like a basic like attack. I'm like, I don't see that. Like I don't have that. Like for some reason that didn't default on my little weapons bar or ability bar. So I had to go into the into my abilities and put that in there and rearrange stuff and stuff like that. But I just thought it was kind of weird that that wouldn't have just been like my default attack. So it's just kind of weird. But otherwise, yeah. Now that I kind of dip my toes into it and I kind of know what I'm doing, it's a lot better. And I do like that there is a lot of like, hey, conversations where it's like you said, it's BioWare, where you get the little the little wheel where you can pick your response and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Like that, you don't usually see that in other games, so it's kind of nice. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. Game Logic, any comments or questions on that one?
No, not really. I mean, being somebody who discovered Warframe very late in its life cycle and periodically goes back, I can't have the same angst over you playing the Old Republic as
Yeah,
DBQ does.
yeah, At least here, like I tried Warframe. I think I mentioned this. I've tried Warframe. It's so confusing to me. Like that game. Like even when I was playing with my friend, we were like, "What the heck are we doing? Like, where do we go for missions and stuff?" At least here, like, because I know the terminology of Star Wars, I can try to figure it out. Like I said, I was asking him about stuff, and I could have figured it out probably eventually, anyways. But it was kind of nice that he was there. He was able to.
I shouldn't say that I have that much angst over it. Like I am so also the same person that no matter every time I get a new graphics card, I'll download Lord of the Rings online, which I haven't played significantly since this game came out, right? Since 2011. But I'll turn up all the graphics and see what it looks like and realize, oh yeah, those polygons are still a little blocky. So
Yeah.
I can't give you too much of a hard time.
Yeah. All right, Game Logic. We got our second sports game for the night. I guess you can call it sports game. Forza Motorsport 2023.
I wouldn't call this one a sports game. I will talk about some sports games in this vein.
I mean, it's racing. I mean, racing sports, isn't it?
In terms of comparison, and I'll actually speak to specific reasons why some of those are more to my liking. Just real quick, one alibi on Assassin's Creed Mirage. What I should have mentioned as a change or development from last week was, in this segment of Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'm starting to also hit the point where there are reasons for you to grind to a very small amount. Like there are like you will go and try and do missions and say your infamy has been tipped, right? Because somebody saw you pick a pocket or somebody saw you do something, and so you need to have certain types of tokens. There are, amazingly enough, a half dozen different types of currencies in this game, as small as it is, and so in order to clear your name, you will have to have a certain type of token in order to execute a mission, which is dependent upon you convincing a merchant to assist you. You will have to have a different type of token, and so when you run out of those tokens, you will have to go do side missions in order to gain them. And so that mission that I was talking about, the concubine, was actually a side mission that I went to do to try and get a certain number of tokens that I needed to go off and do other activity. But over to Forza Motorsport 2023. My feelings on this game are very mixed, as this probably should be the case maybe here in the early outgoings. Part of it is, and I think part of where I differ from a lot of the public sentiment that I see, where I see people gushing about the game. I think there was a lot of pent-up anticipation of this, people waiting so long for it to come around and to be back, remembering that that Forza Motorsport 7 was 2017, so it's been 6 years. And where I'm not great with the game, and I don't think it's necessarily a knock on the game or a knock on Turn 10, it may be just as, how maybe my tastes have changed in the 6 years intervening. This game follows the template of Forza Motorsport pretty well. In fact, there are, today, I think the second race was at, I don't know how to pronounce this thing in Italian, Mugello, an Italian racetrack, which I'm very familiar with. But I mean, I can remember, as I was, coming around that downhill right-hander coming on back around to the beginning straight, I can remember sitting in my apartment like a decade ago, playing with casual adult gamers, right, with Gray, and Gearhead and God, what was his name? Boba. I can't remember, but I can remember racing with those
Bobo.
guys.
Was it Bobo? Yeah. I played Destiny with Bobo. So
yeah, I can remember racing with those guys, and distinctly the conversations we were having, because we were on that same very track, and the dynamics and managing the car were the exact same. Now, that's a track thing, but beyond that, this, although the campaign structure is slightly changed, I think in some ways that I'm not super crazy about. The basic makeup of Forza is incredibly samey, and so for a game that for me I'd wanted to be there in 2020 at the launch of the Series X, that doesn't necessarily land flat with me. It just makes me not like super excited. It just doesn't put me in the same lane as the people that I see out gushing about it. Like this is like the greatest things, the greatest racing games since sliced bread on Xbox. Now of course I'm playing on PC, but from an IP perspective, there used to be a time when I used to come to Forza and I used to feel amazed, and it was like eating that slice of pizza right after the pizza guy drops it off, right? It was that comfort food. And when I look at the field of racing games, and one of the things I wrote today on Twitter is, I talked about, right, the other racing games I played this year, the Crew Motorfest, and F123, and how this just doesn't feel that it necessarily breaks out right from things that Forza Motorsport has done in the past. It's a great graphical upgrade from that perspective, but I don't feel like it does a lot of anything new for me. Now, by the same token, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I want to continue. I jumped in too soon. Please.
No, I mean, now by the same token, I would essentially say the same thing about Gran Turismo, right? Gran Turismo 7 is very much the same Gran Turismo that I've been playing since 1998 or 1999 or whatever on PlayStation. It's a great graphical upgrade, but in 2 decades since, it just doesn't knock me out of my seat. And of those 3 games that I just mentioned, I mean, F123, if I had to pick a racing game of the year right now, I would pick F123. And one of the reasons for that is, on track, Forza Motorsport feels good, right? The feelings that I get going around those tracks are very similar to the feelings I've always had when I've played Forza. But one of the things that I've really grown accustomed to liking is, some of the additional management aspects of the F1 series, as well as, I can't remember whether it's Naxon or Crafton, but KT Racing, the guys who were doing the WRC series, FIA World Rally Championship series before the license went to Codemasters. And managing R&D, managing what happens and what's going on with the team between the races, even to a certain extent, you even got a little taste of that with the Grid series at one point. So that expansion of what's going on off of the track is something that I think I've just grown over the last 6 years, having an additional fondness for. And like you mentioned, DBQ, this is very much a pure racer, right? This is race the car, unlock the thing, refit the thing, go back to the track, race the next race.
There's not much else besides that.
Right. Now there's some little pieces that you mentioned, that are neat, right? Having car points and credits, because as far as I can tell, I don't think you actually expend cash to rig parts. That's all car points, right? So that's neat. The economy is a little weird, and I'm not super acutely conscious of the minutia of the economy, because quite honestly, I just go into the car upgrade screen and hit auto upgrade or whatever its new equivalent is from the Forza Horizon series, and it fits the parts. But I am aware enough to see instances where I have 700 car points. My car performance rating is 505. I spend 700 car points and my car performance rating goes to 506. Right? So there's definitely some gotchas going on there with the parts. But I mean, that's relatively fine. I do appreciate the fact that it does give you that opportunity to upgrade your car between races. In many racing games, I've been, the paradigm to do that is you're in a series, and if you just follow the series naturally through the screens that it gives you, there is no opportunity to upgrade your car. You have to basically back out of the series, go into the garage, add parts to your car, go back to the series. So I do appreciate that that's a little more native and organic in the way this is laid out. I asked you a question, DBQ, last week about liveries, and they are kind of in there in the same way that they are in Forza Horizon. You can go into find designs and pull liveries. There is definitely something going on in the community with the with that designer, and how that's impacting, because usually when you go into these screens, it default gives you 20 variations at least for skins, for liveries. In many cars, I'm going in and I'm finding like 5 or 8. So in my opinion, the uptake across the community, because of the nits that they're having, with the car designer, with the livery designer, is impacting the total volume of skins that are available per vehicle. So that's a little bit of a thing. I'm as long as I can find some, then I'll be fine with that. But I just wonder how that's going to go as I go further into the game. I think maybe the last thing I'll mention is, we talked about the structure being kind of very basic, right, in the campaign, which I get. Somebody could definitely be fully within their rights to call me a hypocrite, because I've been on this show so many times where I've said, I don't need the extra stuff. I just need a bunch of cars. Let me unlock cars and give me a bunch of tracks. But one of the things that's just kind of a little off-putting for me is, first of all, the campaign structure, at least from what I've seen right now, is very Project Cars-ish. It is, a set of kind of classes or subclasses or, races and championships that are oriented around the car's characteristics, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, American cars, Japanese or whatever, cars of a certain period. And so you pick one of those to go into, but at least for the first few that I've been through, like, you go into those and there's like 3 cars that you can buy. You're not given like the entire showroom of cars. And I get why that's, why they did that, how they're trying to cordon you to a certain experience. I think an interesting byproduct of that is I do see people online saying, hey, I got my car to level 50, right? And again, when they comment on that, when they exude that emotion, it's coming from a place where they have felt very personal, right, in their experience with that car. And I appreciate that. I do feel it's a little reductive, right, when I go into these championships and I like I said, I have like 3 choices of a vehicle instead of, a wider array than that. But overall, I'm having a decent enough time with it. Like I said, I'm just not wowed. I said it was going to be the last thing. The thing I will add to that is performance. So I'm playing the game on PC. I'm playing at 3440 by 1440p. I have DLSS on. I'm playing on a 3080 Ti. I have DLSS on in balanced mode. And my default optimization settings set for high. I am now going in and like each race, I'm kind of tweaking that up just a tad. So I've gone to to 105% the resolution buffer size, which gives me a little slightly added textures and makes the gameplay a little bit smoother. I'm now I've taken it out of auto and I've applied 16 times anisotropic filtering, I think. And I can't remember the one. And I think the thing I just added, which I haven't tested yet, is I've added I've taken ray tracing out of auto, and so this is the big one. I've taken ray tracing out of auto, and I've applied full ray tracing effects with ambient occlusion. So it'll be interesting to see how that occurs. Right now, my performance, and originally the frame rate was set for auto, and I think it was locked, but I unlocked it, and so originally I was getting about like in the low 80s for frames. When I unlocked the cap, I started getting sometimes as high as 138. It started settling in kind of the high 1-teens, and as I've been tweaking stuff up, I'm still, when I run the benchmark, I get like in the mid 90s, but on track, I will actually get like in the 105 to 113 range. So it's playing pretty performant, and that's on an ultra wide screen as well. So pretty decent performance right now, and so I do like that. And I will say 2 things that I really do like about the game is audio. I think audio is great because I've got a little kind of minor carpal tunnel. My hands aren't as sensitive on a controller as they used to be, and so in racing games I heavily rely on the sound of the engine of the car and the sound of the tires, and those I think are pretty great in this game. I really have a great feel for the car on track, and I do appreciate, as I just mentioned, I do appreciate what is a very wide array of graphic and video options. Probably my largest pet peeve of this year is how so many of these games are coming out on console, but a lot of times when they're designed for console, it ripples to PC, and it's the developers are trying to dictate to you what the graphical experience should be. And I'm like, that's not why I spent $1,500 or more on a PC, right? I spent that money so that I could decide, right? I've got different displays. I'm on a 43-inch display now. I was playing on a 34-inch ultra wide, earlier. I've got different pieces of equipment. Sometimes I'm recording, going through a capture card. So like, I need to be able to decide, right, what that experience is. And so, I give Turn 10 kudos for all the features, all the options that it's provided from a graphic and video option perspective in the game.
Nice. DB, any comments or anything on that one? I think I've made it clear on my position on Motorsports series. But
no, I appreciate Game Logic's more experienced perspective on it, and I think he's kind of spot on in terms of some of its limitations at this point. So it'll be interesting as we both kind of touch back on this over the course of the fall to see, as updates come, as expand, to see where the kind of tweaking and if it happens, or if it still kind of remains in some of the struggles places where Game Logic identified.
And that's a good point, DBQ. I'll add on to it. Monetization wise, not a huge fan of 2 car packs being out there at launch. So over the years, Turn 10 has made a differentiation between the car pass and car packs. And so the car pass, which you get when you buy like the more expensive editions. As far as I can tell, I'm just assuming it's the same old structure, which is that means you get you get a certain type of car bundle that comes out for the next year or so is generally how it's worked. Well, now there's
seasons worth, yeah.
Well, now there's a thing called car packs, which is different than the cars you get in car pass. Those you have to pay extra for. It used to be that the way this thing was set up, you would buy the VIP pass but get the car pass. You would basically get every new car that was released for the first year. And then at the 12-month point, you would start to see additional cars come out that you would pay for. Now they're releasing these other things at launch and saying, oh, well, that's a car pack. You have to pay extra for that. That I'm not super crazy about. That smells a little bit like, what was this really stinky one? Was the Forza Motorsport 6 that came out with, I think it was 6, that came out with the really, really egregious microtransaction monetization up front to the point where they had to back it out of the game.
Was it 6 or was it 7? Where 7 had like the loot
Maybe it was
boxes
7. Yeah, maybe it was 7. Maybe it was 7, and I didn't play 7. I didn't start playing 7 until they did back that out. So this feels a little grimy from that perspective, but particularly for a game that's in Game Pass right on day one.
All right. So my last one for this past week is actually a brand new game. It's not a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old game. It's Dungeons of Eternity, which is actually I'm playing on my Quest 2 right now. I haven't got the Quest 3 yet. I'll probably get that sometime, probably this fall, more than likely. But this one runs on the Quest 2 right now, and it's a dungeon crawler kind of RPG looter game. Kind of a weird. There's kind of a story that they kind of set you up at the beginning where you're it's more of a sci-fi setting or world that you're in, but then when you actually go into the gameplay, it goes more into like traditional like fantasy based type of gameplay, like Diablo and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. So you can team up, you can go solo, or you can team up with up to three other people, and you go through the dungeons and you're fighting monsters, you fight skeletons. It's kind of the norm. So spiders, you got all these other weird creatures and stuff, and you're basically just going through. And there's a few different modes I'll talk about, but you're going through and picking up gear, picking up health potions, and picking up keys so you can unlock chests that give you more gear, stuff like that. So kind of the old dungeon crawler, but in a 3D environment, obviously, because it's VR. And I just bought it. I think my friend had mentioned it during the week last week, but I didn't buy it until about Friday, and that's pretty much all I've been playing this past weekend. We've been playing pretty much together. I played a couple times here and there by myself, and I actually had just like an open room, so people were kind of like jumping in and out. And for the most part, everyone's been fine. They've been pretty cool. That's one thing in the VR games that usually people are pretty helpful. And I've learned a few things from my friend and from other people just playing. The different modes and figuring out how to do stuff. And like today I was playing a little bit before the podcast, and you can in like in any other VR game you can climb like chains and ropes and stuff like that. There's actually kind of a shortcut where you can do where as long as you're holding onto the chain with one of your hands, you can hit the A button on one of the controllers and you'll just like kind of zoom up the controller, which I had seen people do, and I was like, are they just like like going really fast with their hands, or like how are they doing that? It's like crazy. But so it's just like a shortcut you can do on the controller, so it's kind of nice. But as I mentioned, there's 3 modes. So you got just like a regular raid where you're just going through dungeons and you fight enemies, and you're looking for keys for chests and stuff like that, which you pretty much do in all modes. But you're basically just clearing out the dungeon. And then they have a mode where, and I can't remember the name of the modes right now, I'm sorry, but it's still in a dungeon pretty much, but it's a smaller area that you can kind of explore a little bit. And there's like a main section where there's like a giant obelisk where these crystals are kind of giving it power, and then the enemies go to attack it, and you gotta you gotta fend off the waves of enemies that are coming at you, and then you get experience points which you can use to unlock perks that you can get from the game. And then there's another one where there's it's basically just called like Soul Catcher, where there's enemy, which once again it's like just a big arena basically. And as you defeat the enemies, which this one I got to look up because I'm not sure how this actually works. I played only a couple times, 2 or 3 times, where there's as you kill enemies, and it's not every enemy, but they'll drop like their soul. There's like a little orb that just kind of sits there, and you can suck it up with a little staff that you get at the beginning of the round, and then depending on the rounds, you might need 10, you might need like 15, 20, or whatever it is. You have to get that many orbs. But the last couple times that we've played it, we like. I think the last time actually we didn't get any orbs at all, or maybe like 1 or 2. So like we didn't actually successfully do the round, and we were like we don't know what the heck's going on. Like why weren't enemies dropping these orbs? So I got to look that up and kind of play that a little bit more. But those are the 3 modes they have right now. But we've been having a really good time with it. Like I said, we've been pretty much that's all I've been playing. We've been playing this past weekend. It's just you got the physics-based fighting with swords and axes and maces and all kinds of different. You got different kinds of swords too. Like you just got like a straight like Roman sword or like a scimitar and stuff like that. So I haven't seen any bigger things like staffs or staves or anything like that. So I don't know if they have that yet. But this just came out. It was on the October 5th. So hopefully as the games going on, they'll do updates and add different things and stuff like that. But I'm having, like I said, like a really good time with this right now. So something we've been playing for a while. And of course, you got the different rarities for the weapons and the armor and everything. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary, stuff like that. So I don't think. Well, I know I don't have any legendary stuff yet, and I'm pretty sure my friend didn't get anything yet. I know he's been kind of playing without me also, so we'll have to see once we get that gear. But I have seen legendary gear within the game as I've been playing with people, and obviously that just rips into people like not like nothing. So it'll be kind of nice to get to that stuff. And of course, you got customization of your character. You can do like your face in general. Like you don't have to. There's nothing specific like eyes and nose and stuff like that. It's just like different faces you get, and obviously clothes and stuff like that, which is I always enjoy customizing everything. So, which I think I think my friend usually doesn't get too big into that, but I kind of think I kind of pulled him into that lately, just because when you start off, you're just like in rags basically, and then I have all this other armor on, and the armor itself doesn't really do anything. It's just an aesthetic thing. It doesn't give me any power ups or anything like that. So it's only the perks that you get that gives you extra abilities. So, but it just kind of looks nice, and there's been some pretty cool stuff that I've seen that people had. So, gonna keep playing for that loot, which I think is the whole point. But yeah, definitely enjoying it, and definitely gonna be playing more of this in the future. Any questions or comments on that one? Nope. All right.
No, I appreciate you going back to a VR game. So it's been a while since we talked about VR here. So
Yeah, I know my friend. He really wanted to play VR, especially with me. I think he does every once in a while, but obviously co-op. I think we're big into co-op. Games, not just in VR, but in everything. So, but I know he wanted to get back in, so he had mentioned this one. So the other game, um, Legendary Tales, that we used to play, sometimes play every now and then. Uh, it's supposedly like the version 1.0 is supposed to come out at some point. They've been saying that for the past like year and a half now. It keeps getting delayed, so we're kind of trying to move on and play other things. And believe, what is it? I can't remember the one zombie game that had been playing. I played the first one. The second one's supposed to come out sometime this. Arizona Sunshine is supposed to come out this year also, and that's another one we're looking forward to. So that was pretty fun too. But let's jump into the news. Got some pretty decent stories here. Game Logic, you want to start us off with some Ubisoft AC Mirage news?
Yeah, so the first story by Wes LeBlanc over, like you mentioned, on Game Informer. Assassin's Creed Mirage player count in line with Origins and Odyssey, biggest new-gen Ubisoft launch. Assassin's Creed Mirage hit PlayStation, Xbox, and PC last week, and both critics and fans alike are quite happy with the series' return to its roots. Unlike Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, in which Basim is featured, Mirage is a smaller, more condensed adventure, unlike the prior open-world RPGs. Now, roughly a week later, Ubisoft has revealed that Mirage's player count is in line with Origins and Odyssey. Plus, Mirage is Ubisoft's biggest new-gen launch in terms of sales. So that last little bit shouldn't be surprising. Valhalla launched along or at the relatively same time as the new consoles. Obviously, there were only so many that were out in the wild, so only so many people played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So you could have come out with any version of Assassin's Creed at this point, 3 years into the generation, and had bigger numbers than you had at launch. But still, it's a data point, and so it's good. What's really surprising is the contention that that the numbers are in line with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla overall. Those are big games. When you talk about like the total uptake of those games across PC, for Valhalla across PC, last gen and next gen, and so for the numbers, I'm a little skeptical of that the numbers were as high, but from in terms of just scale, if the numbers are just kind of in the ballpark, if we're talking, millions of players, right, then, I'll take that. Some interesting statistics that they put out, 479 collective years spent parkouring the rooftops of Baghdad. I actually think that's pretty significant. 60 million leaps of faith, I think is actually, also significant. 1.2 million street cats pet. Okay. But it's good news, right? And as I mentioned when these games were announced, the Assassin's Creed player base is a weird player base, is a strange problem for a publisher to have, right? You've done the game in different paradigms, and number one, neither of those two paradigms are necessarily the optimal way to monetize these days. So you've got to also chase a third paradigm, right? And you have players who like the original Assassin's Creed, and you have players that were fans of Origin, Odyssey, and Valhalla. You have new players who came into the Assassin's Creed fold with those open world games, who weren't necessarily dyed in the wool, right, in the old paradigm. So I've been super happy since they announced it because I like both frameworks, and I'm super excited to know that now we're going to get both flavors, and then they're also going to try some live service, long living game type of stuff as well. So good to hear. Actually, very surprising. I did not expect the game to. I thought, just as I mentioned, right, that the player base is kind of two different demographics. I thought only the left-hand demographic was really going to have uptake on this game, but it sounds like it's got to be bigger than that in order to get the numbers that they're talking about.
Well, I'm surprised with those numbers too when I saw them this week. I do wonder, right? Like we all assumed, we as in the gaming press, enthusiasts, those who have been with Assassin's Creed from the beginning, assumed that this was going to carve out that segment, right? Like, but I also think that Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla brought in new players who hadn't experienced it before, and now this is another Assassin's Creed after after the past 2 years of not having one, and so it becomes new people that are interested in this franchise, which is, I guess, a good sign for the franchise, right? Like for Ubisoft's, that is some good news in terms of as they look to spin this out over different kind of revenue streams from mobile and live service pieces. That's a good sign in terms of the strength of its IP.
It's very simple marketability, right? I mean, so we have people who were in love with Starfield, maybe even not necessarily like who weren't bothered by like some of the kind of rough edges that Starfield may have had, right, in certain areas. But they love Starfield because it's sci-fi. There are people who love period pieces. There are people who love history. And I've always said, like, look, Assassin's Creed, you take an era of history, you plop them in another country that is not the person's own, right? And that's going to garner you a significant amount of interest, right? As long as you put enough mechanics around the game to make it interesting. And that's, what was definitely at play here. So I'm hoping that, Ubisoft continues, with this vein.
Yeah, and I just hope they don't kind of go back to their, because there's a lot of announcement, Assassin's Creed announcement. We even got another game still, I think, with their VR game. It's a VR game, but still, it's another Assassin's Creed game coming out. But I hope they don't start the yearly, thing again like they were doing before, where it was like an Assassin's Creed every year. Maybe if it's a smaller thing, like I think one of them's a mobile game, and then obviously you got the two bigger ones, the live service one, and then wasn't there something, I forgot what the other one was.
The live service one, and then Jade, Jade is the mobile one, and then there is a kind of, this was a smaller scope, and then there was going to be kind of the larger RPG scope one as well.
Yeah, so hopefully they don't start that, because at least 2 years. I mean, that's pretty, a decent, time to, pad the wanting of the people out there that want these games. So I didn't play Valhalla, but I did play a little bit of both Odyssey and Origins. So and those are Origins and Odyssey. There's a year or two between them, or did they? I can't remember exactly.
2 years. Origins
2 years,
was
right?
17. Odyssey was 19. And then I think Valhalla was 21?
20.
20.
Because it was the console launches.
Yeah, it was. That's right. It was cross. Yep. It was 20.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna, just for the sake, like, I'm gonna express a different opinion. For the Assassin's Creed in this framework at this scale, I have no problems with this game, with this style being annualized. At least for a certain period of time, 5 years, 7 years. I have, again, I just got done watching Game of Thrones, right? That was 8 years, right? 8 seasons. Arrow was 8 seasons. Like, when a game is in this framework where, like I said, I'm fine with the mechanics. What I really fall in love with is just you shifting where the story takes place every year, and it's got that historical hook to it. Again, I'm fine if it's if it's in America 1 year, it's in China another year, it's in India another year. It's like because each of these opportunities is an opportunity to become familiar with like the time period and the culture and the history, right? And then put a game around it, and particularly in this time where we are literally overwhelmed sometimes with games that demand 30 hours, 40 hours of you, right? A game
that's a small amount of hours, right? Like 50 to 70. Yeah. Like having something that's at the scope of 15 hours is much more digestible. And I think to your point, Game Logic, like that's exactly what Ubisoft wants to hear as they think about what their Assassin's Creed Infinite platform is, right? Like somebody who wants to kind of have these smaller scope pieces and enjoy the history aspects of it and the atmosphere of it. Definitely. So, and just go ahead.
Especially when it's not a $70 game, right? This was, I think it was,
it's 50.
Is it 50 and then there's a $60 version, or is it 40 and then there's a $50 version?
I think it's 50 and then there's like a deluxe version.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So, and for correction, Odyssey was 2018. So it was the year after year, and then Valhalla was 2 years. They're at 20.
Okay. So maybe if they do that like every other year, like year, and then take a break, year. No, that might not be too bad. But we have some more.
Well, you're just saying that because you want this other game to come out, and now it's not going to.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Once a quarter, my favorite game I've never actually ever played, and I think only a few people have played because I think there's been some beta or alpha tests and stuff like that. But XDefiant has once again been delayed, but this time it's indefinite. And there was a excuse me, there was a post by Mark Rubin, who's the let's see, he's the executive producer and director of the game. Who actually I completely forgot he used to work at Infinity Ward for Call of Duty, which now makes sense. Kind of comes around, but he had put a Twitter or X feed, whatever you want to call it now, stating that there was inconsistencies in their last public test session with the game, and then he kind of expanded on it a little bit more in this article from IGN. Basically, he said that there's something which kind of seems weird, but there's something that was the movement felt off, and there's some issues with the sliding that they have in the game. Now, I've only ever seen like videos of this. I don't even think, and I think it was just like trailer stuff, which still was gameplay, but it was just normal stuff. But I feel like I don't know. Since I'm not a developer, like maybe the Game Logic can and speak about this a little bit more. Uh, it seems kind of weird that they indefinitely suspend it, or if they kind of know like where they're looking to fix things. So, and then he goes on to say, "I know it's a bummer that we're not moving the date, or we're moving the date, especially since we seem so close, and for many that the game is great and they can't wait to play it. But I'd rather ship a game that's better for everyone, which of course, we want to see that too. We don't want to see just some broken game like we have been for the last few years out there. But unfortunately, like I said, they haven't even given. I don't even remember if there's ever really. I know that I don't think they ever had a specific date. Maybe just kind of like a season at the most that they said before. But now we don't have anything, so who knows when and if this will ever come out. So kind of sad, but I mean, yeah, because I mean, it does look like kind of in the vein of Call of Duty, and obviously a big Call of Duty fan, but it just kind of stinks that we're not going to see anything this year at least. So Game Logic, like I said, I don't know if what he said is valid. Like I mean, could you say, hey, I definitely we don't know, since this is the things we're looking into to fix. And obviously you're not a game developer, but you're a software developer, so.
I mean, I don't think the decision to delay indefinitely had anything to do with the technical aspect. I think it had everything to do with the business aspect. I think you could obviously make a reasonable estimation of how much time it would take you to overhaul those two subsystems. I think in the case of Skull and Bones, right, which we've seen kind of go back to the drawing board, indefinitely. But even when they've said indefinitely, they've said the game will come out when the game's right. But then we've seen steady progression of alphas and betas with that game, which I know lots of people contend the game was never going to come out, but yet I still see the game going back for player tests, right? Which obviously is an investment you're going to make if you never intend to put the game out. I think, even though this announcement came a couple of days before the other big story we're going to talk about tonight, I just believe that they're looking at XDefiant, and they're looking at what it is, and they're looking at how crowded the marketplace is, and they're looking at, again, as I've said, many times over the last few years, they look at how much air Call of Duty sucks out of the room. But now, in the last week, now you have the weird thing. Well, first of all, let me back up before that. You have EA retooling for its approach to Battlefield, right? Putting it under Vince Zampella, right? Which is just you have to recognize that as a competitive force to be dealt with. But then you see the resurgence that it's seen over the last few days, where it's peaked in active player count, right? In a way, because quite honestly, I mean, from what I've heard of the Modern Warfare 3 beta, the Modern Warfare 3 beta isn't necessarily making a huge splash. And so now you're thinking about, am I going to put out XDefiant when EA is kind of gathering its strength and really about to put a big push behind Battlefield? And when now Call of Duty, right, is going to be on every cloud streaming service under the sun and potentially on Game Pass and yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's, to me, as an Ubisoft, I think you take a look at what you're doing from an investment portfolio perspective, and you start thinking about, what you're greenlighting and what you're not.
Yeah. DB, any comments?
No, other than I'm surprised that we're not talking about the Call of Duty beta this week. Tom Astor, you dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, I was actually gonna try to pick it up, but then I was like, eh. And then this other game come up, so I was like, I kind of just forgot about it. So, and yeah, Game said, like I haven't, it kind of seems like, in which people say all the time, like same old, but it even more so with this game. So, and I was actually thinking of buying it too, and I still might, or probably will, but I could always uh, maybe just wait until it comes to Game Pass. Which let's just jump to that story right now. So it looks like it's official. I'll say looks like because you never know, but it was given the Microsoft has been given the go ahead and buy Activision Blizzard. Um, slash what King, I think it is the mobile division. Uh, the what was it? The CMA finally, gave the okay for them to go ahead and do it. So that was announced today. And this original story was from the BBC, but obviously it's on everything. And I even saw on Xbox Wire they had their statement with welcoming the new company into their fold. So and I can't remember which site I had, but it had all of Microsoft's properties now and different companies and stuff. And it was just like wow, that's like when you see it like laid out like that, it's just like wow, it's kind of amazing that all the companies that are under their umbrella now. And then kind of look with that, a few days after that announcement, or a couple days maybe, there was this article from Ars Technica, which they actually sourced Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, that Bobby Kotick will be most likely be stepping down come January 1st, 2024. So as CEO of Activision. So, and he's been there 30. Wow, I didn't even realize he's been there that long, but 30 plus years. I think it was like 33.
He's within the top 5 of longest running CEOs of an American publicly traded company.
Yeah, I just find that amazing coming from where I work, where I've had like 3 or 4 maybe within the past 5 years. It's like wow, it's nice to have a stable.
Well, if you're getting multi-million-dollar bonuses every year, like
Yeah, but we also know all the troubles that have come with that, and that we have seen from him. Not I shouldn't say from him, but all the troubles that have come from the company the last few years. So
exactly.
yeah, so gentlemen, it's finally, like I said, most likely finally done. I don't know if anything can really stop it now. I know there was another article where I saw, I think it was the FTC or one of them were still trying to look into stopping it or doing something about it, but I forgot to. I was going to look it up, and I didn't get a chance to. That article, what they were actually
The
talking about.
FTC can file to review it after it's gone through. Like that has always been something that the FTC has the ability to do once it happens, but historically it's much harder to undo something once it has been done, which is why they filed what they did last year in terms of kind of trying to prevent it rather than trying to undo it after the fact.
Okay.
But not impossible. It has been done in this country. It was most recently done in Europe, where they made Facebook give Gliffy back. I think we mentioned that a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
A few years ago, the FTC made Whole Foods make a divestiture of some, I forget, grocery subspecialty thing that they had taken over before the Amazon buyout. So, it does happen, from time to time. I've never seen it happen. I can't recall it happening at this scale for this large of an acquisition.
And I was just going to commend you on your optimism, game. Like, woo!
There's always a but, or could be, I suppose. But yeah, so finally we'll see this go through, and I know there's been all kinds of articles with it, games coming to Game Pass or when that's going to happen, but that's looks like that's still being worked out in the background. So we'll see what happens going forward. Gentlemen, any other comments on this one now that it's finally done? No, nothing. All right. Let's jump into.
We've spent the last 2 years talking about it, so I think we've kind of covered it in some capacity. So,
Game, go ahead if you want to go on to your next news article here about Team 17.
Yeah, so Team 17, which is a small publisher, I believe over in Europe, I forget where they're headquartered out of, This is an article over on gamingindustry.biz by Brendan Sinclair. Team 17 layoffs could hit 1/3 of the company. More than 90 jobs reportedly at risk, and indie publishers recently confirmed restructuring. Team 17's restructuring could end with the publisher laying off 1/3 of its employees, according to Eurogamer. The outlet said that the formal consultation for the cuts is expected to conclude next month, with up to 91 people's jobs at risk in the process. Eurogamer had previously reported Team 17 was planning to unload more than half of its QA staff, with up to 50 roles at risk. I picked up on this article because Team 17 published one of the smaller indie titles that I've played this year, Trepang 2. And they had a few other things that were in pipeline that a few people, had gotten excited about. Trepang 2, unfortunately, now as these layoffs are occurring, is starting to kind of pick up some notice, as it has just recently arrived on consoles. It had been on PC earlier this year, but it's just getting to Xbox and PlayStation 5 this fall. So, this is coming amidst, the CEO planning on stepping down, which wasn't an orderly, succession plan that had been in place. Debbie Bestwick will be stepping down at the end of the year and will be replaced by Steve Bell. So, the unfortunate thing is that, again, it's effective that we, pin this story now after having talked about the Microsoft acquisition. We've had a slew of layoffs. We've had a slew of, companies that are struggling. It'll be interesting to see how the competitive field, plays out right in the wake of acquisitions. We have rumors and rumblings of EA being acquired. Although I don't give that any particular credence beyond, what companies normally do whenever they do AOP. Acquisitions are always under discussion. I don't give that Disney story a ton of weight. But the point is that, as the Activision acquisition has been cleared, what in my mind is true from what I said was that, companies, like I said, who are in particularly the big six, who are constantly in a cycle of talking about who they're going to acquire, now look at that large of an acquisition having gone through and now consider that, those things are, the percentage of those things being feasible and successfully matriculating is now higher. So, it'll be interesting to see how they play out. Disney is in the top 68 companies in terms of market cap. Activision being taken off the board actually takes off the largest pure gaming company by market cap. Everyone else above them is some type of hybrid conglomerate, but Activision was the largest valued market cap company that was exclusively in the market of video games. And now they've been taken off the board, which means everybody below them, right, is actually market cap valuated lesser and is therefore a much more affordable acquisition for companies, some of which, Microsoft has a strategy of trying to keep out, such as Amazon and Google. It'll be interesting to see how things go. I think part of the popular belief as this whole discussion has been going around is, these employees, the big companies get acquired and then employees leave and they open new studios and it's, the cycle of life. And I'm like, okay, but the part of the story that you're leaving off out of the cycle of life is how they release one title. Sometimes, maybe, they often don't even get to releasing that title before they run out of money. The title comes out, it doesn't sell well, Callisto Protocol. The studio immediately shuts down, and all those employees go right back to working for the large company. And the whole reason that they're going back is because the competitive landscape of the market didn't support them being an independent developer. So, again, we'll continue to see how this plays out.
All right. Last news article here is Rocket League, and this is from Engadget. Rocket League will remove their player-to-player item trades in this coming December 5th, specifically. So it's a Tuesday. Tuesday is usually their update days, so it kind of makes sense that I guess they would do it then. But of course, there's a big fervor online because they're taking this away, and what they said is their Psyonix said. As their decision was based on their parent company, which is Epic Games, on their cosmetic policies, which ban sales and only allow in-game trades. So they're making that, just trying to align with their parent company I think I had only traded maybe a few times, like a handful of times. This whole I've been pretty much playing since the beginning when it came out, and it was, it was fine. But from what I've read, I guess there's a lot of third party sites out there that you can go to, and they kind of like a buy and sell thing that or I wouldn't say buy and sell, but that they're using these third party sites to kind of trade off items and stuff like that. And I don't know, I've been kind of seeing like both sides after doing some research on from people kind of blasting them for doing that, but I guess they kind of have a valid reason that these third well business wise they have a valid reason, because these third party sites are obviously making money from these trades and stuff. So I mean, I guess that's right. It's a bummer for the people who do it. Like I said, I didn't do it that often, and uh, like I've said in the past, like I bought their Rocket Pass or Battle Pass, whatever you want to call it, what they call it as a Rocket Pass. I buy it once, and then I'm just using the points that I get each season to buy the next one. So and I get plenty of stuff that I can use, and I've got tons of stuff in there I probably don't ever use, and it's kind of sitting there. So I can kind of see both sides. It is a bummer that they're taking it away. So if there is something rare maybe that people had gotten like in the first few years or whatever, you'll never be able to get any more now at all, because you can't trade for it or anything like that. So it's just kind of a bummer deal that I guess it's going to go down next, or I shouldn't say next month, a couple of months. So any questions or anything on that one? No. All right. So let's jump into our round robin. Looks like we just have a couple of games here we're talking about. DB, you got the first one.
Yeah, hot on the heels of the news story this week of Paradox writing off Lamplighters League. It's also out on Game Pass. So I downloaded it last week when it came out 2 weeks ago, and this week finally got around to the news cycle. This week gave me enough incentive to give it a try. That Paradox was writing off Lamplighters League costs, right? It came out early in October, and they're writing off the $22.8 million. And there are layoffs at the studio, harebrained schemes. So I figured, in light of all that, I should give this game a try. It's a lot of fun. Well, I shouldn't say it. It is. I'm enjoying it. It is. I'm only early in. Kind of went through the couple tutorial missions, got to kind of the main hub. For listening to other people and reading online, it ramps up the difficulty later on. But it is. I don't know. It's a pretty enjoyable tactical strategy game. The controls are a little.
So it is an XCOM like then.
Yes, it
Okay.
is XCOM like. You are free moving throughout a map, which isn't great because the kind of pathing that you can group people, you can click people off. Still kind of figuring out on PC kind of the scrolling out or zooming out to see more of the map. But you trigger combat either by getting into an enemy's sight line, or you can kind of set up while you're still. There's a lot of stealth here. You can set up while you're still in stealth, and then on PC hit the control button to then trigger kind of the battle mode, and where it is kind of turn based. You have action points, and you can you end up kind of moving. It's not real time, so you end up each character moves, and the enemy has a phase, the player has a phase. It is cover based. You have kind of melee classes, you have range classes, you have kind of assault classes, at least in the ones that I've opened up at this point. So yeah, it is very much kind of a tactical turn based XCOM like. It reminded me of playing Marvel's Midnight Suns without superhero abilities, and it's kind of in this 1930s ish setting, and it I don't know. I'm playing on not super difficult. Like, I'm playing on the easy to kind of get a sense of what it is, and I could see on more difficult. Like, if I understood all the controls, I am glad that I'm playing on easier because I'm still learning those controls. But so yeah, Lamplighters League, it is it's a good Game Pass game, right? Like, I don't know that I would have checked this out as a Paradox game without being on Game Pass, but I don't know that I would have checked it out. It I don't know that I would have been incentivized to check it out as soon as I did without the news cycle around kind of the layoffs and everything else, which is maybe too bad. Like, I enjoy a tactical turn-based RPG, and this, there are skill trees here, so you get skill points as you're leveling up. Yeah, I am surprised that I enjoyed it. I've never really sunk my teeth into the Forex paradox aspect. So this is more on the XCOM end of that, and so it feels more approachable in some of that way. Rounding out my dive into Game Pass games, From Space is a small little indie developer. It is it is a dual stick shooter, more or less. It came out on PC and Switch back last fall, and just this past week came out on Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, I mean, it's cute. It's kind of blocky characters, kind of feels in that kind of tiny soldier. It's not a high end game, but it's also a game where if you're sitting down with another couch co-op, or it has online co-op, it has a lot more characters in it than it did when it launched last year. You have different classes. You have support classes and healer classes, kind of tank classes and assault classes, sniper classes. And so there's a lot of variety in terms of the little characters, the little people that you get to fend off your alien invasion. And I could see that if you're playing around with some friends, it's not a heavy game, but it's also something where the team-based mechanics of it for a group of friends, could resonate. So
Nice. Going back to Lamplighters League for a second, was that you, or was that Swiss that was mentioning they were kind of looking forward to that because of the previous game? I think it was BattleTech. I think they had done or something.
They did do BattleTech. Yes, they did BattleTech, and then moved on to this when Paradox was looking to not license as much and to create some internal properties or IPs. So no, that was Swiss, who was
Okay, that was Swiss.
BattleTech fan.
And was this another studio where they're saying they're not shutting down, but maybe like kind of laying off people? I think.
Yep. Yeah, Hairbrain Schemes is the studio, and they confirmed significant layoffs there at the studio as well.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that sucks. So, yeah, unfortunately. All right. So, last one here is my PC game. Here was Gotham Knights. I jumped back into just a couple days that I went back in. And I was playing some missions and stuff. I finally got past the police station, doing that stealth, which actually wasn't too bad because usually I'm not a big stealth guy. But I was pretty well done. Like, it doesn't seem as unforgiving as some other games where you get that stealth element. I was pretty much able to get past all the policemen, police women, people in the precinct, as I was kind of sneaking around trying to get stuff from people's desks and other people like that. And it's kind of nice you can do the while I'm playing Robin. So but I'm assuming everybody can kind of use that. What do you call it? Kind of like a grappling hook or whatever that you can kind of zoom and kind of skip through a level or a room, I should say. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, still enjoying that game a lot. Still playing it. I did that one, and then I just did a couple of like crimes around the city. So I haven't delved too much more into the story. So definitely going to be playing more of that this coming week. Let's jump into what we're playing next. Speaking of which, and DB, going back to Halo, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, in the way of like, it's season 5, and I feel like I should probably give it a try. I haven't played Halo Infinite since launch, and jumping in a new season, I've also kind of started to dabble back into Overwatch 2 a little bit. Last week was the launch of that season. Yeah. So chances are as I wait for Friday and my delivery of Spider-Man 2, I will play some season pass aspects of things to keep me busy.
Nice. And Game Logic, looks like you're going to do some more Forza.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been playing, in addition to the things I talked about, I've been playing, some Forza Horizon 5 as well on the side, and actually The Witcher 3 on my Steam Deck. You might be able to barely make it out, but I actually put together, finally, my other stand for my wheel and pedals, my higher end Thrustmaster wheel and pedals. I'd already put kind of the lower end wheel and pedals on one stand, but had an opportunity to use that for Forza Horizon 5. But yeah, I will be continuing to delve into Forza Motorsport 2023 and kind of pulling that apart and seeing a little more, getting a little more insight into how that thing is put together.
And I'm sorry, you might have mentioned it before, but when you were playing, when you were talking about earlier, did you use wheel and pedals?
I did not. So, first, onboarding into a new racing game, I am playing with a controller. I am using my Elite controller too. So, and it's doing really well. I looked up optimal settings for it, and I'm pretty happy with it. I can't say that I have a ton of complaints about the game from a controller perspective. All those things I've seen it be pretty well. I think one of my nits with it that I'm hoping I get. Well, I won't get past. I think it is what it is. It's got like a save mechanic that isn't particular. That I'm not a huge fan of. So if you go in and you run practice, and then you close out of the game and then you go back into it, and there is no like, hey, save my career like at this point in time. If you go back into it, like I've gone back, I had done practice at Laguna Seca and completed practice and done my upgrades and expected that when I came back into it, it would just put me in the race. It did not. It made me go back and run the practice over again. And same thing when I was doing the onboarding tutorial, and it was kind of weird because I had already upgraded a vehicle because I had backed out to run benchmarks, and I already knew and understood the whole, going back to sometimes when we've talked about the philosophy of training in video games on the show, like certain games, particularly that are in long-running franchises, need a thing that say, hey, have you played Forza Motorsport for the last 20 years? Okay, we probably don't need to take you through the tutorials. So this game puts you through how to upgrade your vehicle tutorial. And I know there are some new paradigms, but it wasn't a leap to understand that CPs means car points and they have to be expended to add parts. So I had already upgraded a vehicle outside of the tutorial, but then I had gone through the tutorial because they do the tutorial for upgrading a vehicle like after like your first or second race. I think after your second race. So then I had done the tutorial, upgraded the vehicle, expended the car points. I had backed out of the game. I came back into the game. It put me through the tutorial again. So it seems like when you come back into the game, it does any preamble that it did into the next race and starts you at that race weekend. It doesn't necessarily stave at that snapshot in time, like Codemasters games do. And so when you come in, like if, in Formula One, if I've already run practice and I've already run qualifying, and I say, first of all, I have an option to deliberately save right at that point in time. And then when I come back in, it just puts me in the race. So, I guess I'm just going to have to get over that with Forza because like I said, I don't think there's any way to work around that.
All right, and then I will be continuing to play Dungeons of Eternity and hopefully a little bit more of Gotham Knights this coming week. And I did play a little bit of Starfield. I didn't have a whole lot of time to play it this past week, but hopefully I'll get more into it also this coming week. All right, gentlemen, that is it for episode number 312. Please join us next week where Game Logic will be the primary host, and I believe DB and I should be there also. Anything else before we get out of here at Game Logic, DB Cams? Nope. All right. Thank you, Game Logic and DB, for joining us, or me and us, on the podcast today. Please come back next week. Take care of yourselves out there and play those games. We will see you next time.